Oh yeah, one more thing I want to tell you. After you've done this presentation, it looks absolutely wonderful and sweet, and you're ready to go. I want to give you some recommendations because I've been pitched by a lot of entrepreneurs what you should do during the meeting. First of all, when you're pitching me, show me some enthusiasm. I'm not looking for you to jump up and down and go crazy on me, but please show me some enthusiasm. So number thing I want you to remember is show some enthusiasm, okay? Number two is when you're giving me the presentation, listen, sense, and respond and engage. So during the presentation, if you're talking to me about a specific market or product or competitor, and I start interacting with you, well, don't shut me down. Just let me interact with you. I can tell you that. And please don't tell me, well, that's on slide number 15. Please don't do that. That irritates the heck out of me. So when you're presenting to me, remember that even though you're presenting, listen, sense, respond, okay, engage. And also don't forget, you want to have some rhythm and flow. So, you're going to get your rhythm and flow by doing a lot of practicing. And that's not any different than playing in any team-related sports game. Rhythm and flow, because you want the presentation to flow nicely according to your psychological makeup, the look and feel of your culture and all that. And then of course you have to have some flexibility. Okay? One of the things that irritates me is if I'm giving you, if you're doing a presentation and pitching me for money, be flexible. If I'm not interested in hearing about your market size, or I'm busy and you only got 15 minutes, but I gave you 15 minutes, but you have a 30-minute presentation, be flexible. Look at your investor and see where you need to move on. And there's times when I was pitching venture capitalists where I would just literally ignore the slide. I'd say, oh, you already know this. The classic case for me was like, oh, you already know this, let's move on to the next slide. Because then they know you're time conscious, okay? So the other thing you want to do is you want to practice, okay? You want to practice your pitch, okay? And that's very important. So one of the things that I've done for even the startups that we are doing internally, funding and launching, is that I'll continue to practice the pitch, the startup pitch to my friends and family, and I've even practiced by talking to our animal friends. So the more you practice out loud, the better you become. But I will tell you one thing, it's one thing to practice your startup pitch to your family, friends, and loved ones, but it's another thing to have what I call a combination of sitting ducks, okay? Nothing used to irritate me more than you have a group, I'm not making this up, okay? I have a group of people come in, really with a really cool startup idea, and there's like 6 of them. And they all come into the office and things are getting a little stuffy and crammed. And then out of those 6 people, just one person talks for the entire 30 minutes. Okay, so I'm a big believer, maybe because of my soccer background, because I'm used to playing on teams, is that whoever you bring to the meeting to present the startup idea, the vision, your cool stuff, make sure that you get everybody else to interact. And one of the things that used to irritate me is that when the entrepreneur would be pitching the concept and going through the slides, and then one of the other founders starts interjecting. I've actually seen, I'm not making this up, I've seen it where sometimes the founders completely interrupt each other and go off on some side topic that has nothing to do with presenting the company. So make sure that when you are pitching, that you guys practice, however many of you come to the meeting, that you practice. And then also one of the things you want to do is you want to interact. In fact, the coolest thing to see as an investor and venture capitalist is that when I'm presenting a certain slide, just as I roll to the next slide, so for instance, let's say I'm going from a product slide to a marketing slide, and the person that's involved in marketing goes in and flawlessly starts the conversation without any interruptions. So it's just like in soccer where you pass the ball to from one player to another, your presentation should be like that too. At the end of the day, if you have a presentation that looks really sweet, really tight, and then you combine it with practice of the pitch. In fact, I'm a big believer that you should know by memory, absolutely by memory, everything that's on those slides. So if you have 15 slides, main slides, and you have, let's say, 3 to 4 slides in the appendix, you should know every slide, period. What's on it, where if I'm talking to you, for instance, I could tell you right now on the competitive overview slide that, of course, I'm going to have a matrix. I'm going to have a competitive matrix of how key variables compare to the direct and indirect competition. I'm also going to discuss the barriers to entry as an example, and then I'm going to talk about the differentiation points. So if you go back and refer to what I told you about, is that you're going to have those elements. So the more that you remember each slide, then also you can easily remember the rhythm and flow of the presentation. You'll easily know when each person comes into the presentation. And of course, you always want to close in a very positive way. One of the things I do recommend is when you're pitching, don't show arrogance. If you're pitching a venture capitalist that knows the sector, then be very cognizant of the fact that they may not be interested in looking at some of the slides. However, if you're pitching an investor, whether they're angel or venture capitalist or whatever funding source, that is not familiar with the category, please be very patient and don't show arrogance like, what do you mean you don't know social media? Or like, what do you mean you don't know, 3D printing? So my whole point is that be very cognizant of that, because the objective of doing the right presentation, doing the right pitch is for you to get to the next stage where people write you checks. Oh, one more thing. Now, you're also going to develop operational slides, and operational slides are in terms of like timelines on your product launch, timelines on your marketing. And those are your operational slides that you do not share, because it shouldn't really be part of your startup pitch to the investors. Those are proprietary slides, but you should develop them. In fact, I'm a big believer in developing slides on the PowerPoint instead of writing it into a business plan. So that's very important for you to consider. So as you're seeing this, you're building a presentation with an X amount of slides that is geared towards investors, and then what you're doing is also you're adding an appendix with all kinds of good research data to not only support the investment presentation, but also operational aspects of the business. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have different slides that are proprietary and internal that explain the marketing campaign, the look and feel, the target market, or obviously the engineering, design and engineering side, where you're talking about the timelines of the deliverables for instance, for a software product. So those are the type of things you want to do. And then what you're going to have is probably at the end of the day about 30 to 40 slides that encompass the investor pitch and also the operational aspects of the business, plus the research facts that support different functions of your business. So this way you're building a portfolio, a deck of slides that reflect your business in a much easier way visually to see than just going through a business plan. That's why I say business plans, in my opinion, is old stuff, old news. So you should focus on developing very effective PowerPoint presentations in any way you want, as long as it's very visually appealing and easy to understand and see. Last note is, if you have any questions, send me a message. My email is damir@entrepreneurdex.com. And also, if you have any other suggestions, please send them to me, because I will comment on those suggestions. So we're here all to learn from each other, but this is some of the experiences that I've seen as an investor and an entrepreneur pitching other investors. And so the whole objective is obviously to standardize the process and make it much simpler and easy for you to project your vision on one end, but also for the investors to understand what you're trying to do.